Hello, this is Dwight Mutonono, also known as Mnyaradzi, also known as Mutos, and welcome to the Connection Desk. We are in Acts chapter 25, and at this point we have Felix has left. He was the governor before a man called Festus, who we get introduced to in this chapter, and Festus becomes the new governor. Festus was actually a very different governor from Felix, in that he was very efficient and he did things according to the book. And he was very clear in the way that he approached this whole story. And so we see when Festus comes in that that Paul's case is expedited, things are moved on, and he's heard. And this is after a two-year delay. So let's go to Acts chapter 25. We're going to read 12 verses and we'll get into it. 3 days after arriving in the province, Festus went up from Caesarea to Jerusalem, where the chief priests and Jewish leaders appeared before him and presented the charges against Paul. They urgently requested Festus, as a favor to them, to have Paul transferred to Jerusalem, for they were preparing an ambush to kill him along the way. Festus answered, "Paul is being held at Caesarea, and I myself am going there soon. Let some of your leaders come with me and press charges against the man there if he has done anything wrong." After spending 8 or 10 days with them, he went down to Caesarea, and the next day he convened the court and ordered that Paul be brought before him. When Paul appeared, the Jews who had come down from Jerusalem stood around him, bringing many serious charges against him, which they could not prove. Then Paul made his defense. "I've done nothing wrong against the law of the Jews, or against the temple, or against Caesar." Festus, wishing to do the Jews a favor, said to Paul, "Are you willing to go up to Jerusalem and stand trial before me there on these charges?" Paul answered, "I'm now standing before Caesar's court, where I ought to be tried. I've not done any wrong to the Jews, as you yourself know very well. If, however, I'm guilty of doing anything deserving death, I do not refuse to die. But if the charges brought against me by these Jews are not true, no one has the right to hand me over to them. I appeal to Caesar." After Festus had conferred with the council, he declared, "You have appealed to Caesar, and to Caesar you will go." Okay. As I said, Paul's case was handled efficiently. The moment Festus came in, it was like 3 days after he came in, he went down to Jerusalem, and the Jerusalem leaders wanted Paul to come to them urgently. Caesarea was the Roman capital of Israel. So Jerusalem was the religious or Jewish capital, but the Romans had actually put their political capital, or they had established Caesarea as their political capital of Israel. And in the Roman structures, the province of Judea was ruled from Caesarea. Okay, so that's why Caesarea became a very important place at that time. So when he went down to Jerusalem, he went down there 3 days after assuming office, of course, because he knows that this is where the Jewish capital is and where the Jewish people actually traditionally have been led from. So he went down to Jerusalem to speak to the Jewish leaders who were there. There's the temple there and so on. So the chief priests and Jewish leaders appeared before Festus to present these charges against Paul, and they requested to have Paul transferred to Jerusalem to face trial there. Now, this plot to kill him was still there, and there was a plot to ambush and kill him on the way. So it wasn't a genuine request. Luke, gives us a view from behind to the motivation why they wanted to have Paul brought to Jerusalem. And they probably knew that they did not have a strong enough case against Paul to convict him. So this is why they wanted to kill him. So they were malicious, they were demonically motivated against him, and they were not even really prepared to go through the systems, the structures, the lawful ways to deal with this case. Paul was not facing flesh and blood. This is not flesh and blood. It was evil forces against the spread of the gospel, and they will do it by whatever means necessary. So they are lawless, these forces of evil, and they actually will violate the laws if given half a chance. And that's what was going to happen here. They wanted a situation where they could lawlessly kill Paul. They wanted to kill him. So what Festus then did is he made the decision that since Paul was in Caesarea, he was going back there and he would hear the case against Paul in Caesarea. And he directed some of the leaders to go to Caesarea with him to present the case. Now, this would be a jab, a political jab to the Jews, or a slap in the face to the Jews. Because for the second time now, they had to send a group that would make a presentation against this man, Paul, who was an alleged criminal. So they wanted him to face their court. But what was happening now is they were being made to go to Caesarea to face their prisoner. And this would, agitate them, of course. And they were under Roman rule. And this would really make them feel that they were under Roman rule, because it would humiliate them in the community that they're having to go up to Caesarea to deal with this man, Paul. So their leaders could not order Paul to come to them. If they could, they would have done that. They had to have the Romans actually allow that. So they went. Then the leaders from Jerusalem presented their case in Caesarea. It's not clear who exactly the leaders that went up were, but it's a representative of the Sanhedrin, obviously. They brought serious charges against him, probably like what the lawyer Tertullus had presented before Felix, so it was probably something of that nature. But it says briefly, so Luke gives us a brief, quick overview of the case, and he says they could not prove the charges against Paul. Paul must have asked for proof, and they couldn't produce it. So Paul's defense was simple. He had done nothing wrong against the law of the Jews or against the temple, as they had alleged, and neither was he plotting a sedition against Caesar. So again, Luke summarizes Paul's defense in a sentence. And what Paul then does is he appeals to Caesar. Before the appeal to Caesar, Festus sensed that maybe there was a sense of humiliation, the Jewish humiliation, to have to come up to Caesarea to try Paul there. And he tried to appease the Jews. You see, it was maybe he was looking for a more cordial, long-term relationship with the Jews. And by sending Paul for trial in Jerusalem, he was hoping that maybe it would kind of make their long-term relationship better. But Paul realized that this was what was happening. It was a political expediency, for political expediency, that Festus wanted Paul to go to Jerusalem. So Paul then was quick to see what was going on. And he says, Festus, you know for yourself. You see, he says, to Festus, I am now standing before Caesar's court where I ought to be tried. I have not done any wrong to the Jews, as you yourself know very well. So he was then saying to Festus, Festus, you know very well that I have not done anything here. but you are just trying to be politically expedient to try to get me to Jerusalem. And of course, he was aware that he would be in danger even on that trip, and that these Jerusalem leaders were not motivated by justice, but by malice, and they really just wanted to kill him. And what then Paul does is he appealed to Caesar. He appealed to Caesar. He said, I am in the court of Caesar. I am actually right in the place where I should be as a Roman citizen, and I am appealing that Caesar hears my case. So he's gone above Festus now, and he said, Festus, I would like Caesar to hear my case. And he was appealing to Festus' sense of responsibility in dispensing justice. And what he was now doing was basically saying to Festus, I am as a Roman citizen, I feel that I am in danger and I will not get a fair trial. And in this environment that I am in, I am not safe anymore. I need to go to be heard by Caesar. So that was what he was implying implicitly. That's what he was saying to Festus. And Festus conferred with his leaders, and then they came to the conclusion that he had appealed to Caesar, and to Caesar he should go. So we will stop at this point, and we'll continue in the next session with Festus and Agrippa, who will now be, how Festus presents Paul to Agrippa.